Number 17, Keys of the Kingdom says, what is the ontological difference between heaven and pre-sin Eden? What is the nature of being in the very quality of what they are? What's the difference between heaven and pre-sin Eden? If heaven is greater than Eden, then doesn't it follow that Adam and Eve's sin led to a greater eternity than they would have had otherwise? Oh, well, we don't. I guess the second question I can answer easily is, well, we just don't know what their eternity would be like. If Adam and Eve had never sinned, what would their eternity have been like? Well, we don't know. That never developed. So that type of what-ifing is a little bit reckless because it's all the subtle, like, hinting that's behind it. I just think we shouldn't go there, to be honest. There's a psalm that says, Psalm 103, I think it is, like, I'm like a weaned child with his mother. I do not concern myself with things too great for me. There's a wisdom in life in recognizing when you're talking about an issue or thinking about an issue that is genuinely beyond you. Not just that you should think harder to understand it better, because that's always a good idea. But when you go, it's genuinely beyond me, it can be wise to just not worry about it, not think about it. So the ontological difference between heaven and pre-sin Eden. God did walk in the garden in pre-sin Eden, but with I'll take the new heavens and the new earth, right? With that, we do have a garden that's there, but we have many more people. That would have eventually happened if there was no sin in Eden, they still would have populated the place. We have structures and buildings, and we have life and flowing and the ebb and flow of daily life, that sort of thing. God's presence is so very present that he's a light that shines and fills the place. So there seems to be a greater sense of the presence of God than there was in Eden before the fall, even though he at least sometimes walked in the garden with them. So the stronger presence of God that's there. There's also the whole story of creation, fall, redemption, the death and resurrection of Christ, the compassion and love of God, and the very intimate personal relationship with the Holy Spirit we have now that I don't think they had in Eden before the fall. Could they have had it if they had never fallen? I mean, theoretically they could have, or they couldn't. That's over my head. But there are some differences.